All right, folks, welcome into the latest edition of College Basketball Coast to Coast, the live Saturday Nightcap show. I am the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives. It's great to have you on all the social media platforms of College Basketball Coast to Coast. That includes YouTube under that name. That includes the Twitter handle at CBB Coast to Coast. You see my Twitter handle on the screen as well. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, as well as YouTube. Follow me there at Bucks Sideline Guy. Now, if you're only hearing the podcast replay, this is a live Saturday night show. I'm glad that you're with us on Pod Replay on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, but come find us live on social media when we do this on Saturday nights. Typically, I have Jason Powers with me as a wingman, among others. Jason has an excellent excuse, a get-out-of-jail-free card. He's working the Pro Bowl in Orlando, the Pro Bowl games, the flag football game, as an official with Peyton Manning and Eli Manning coaching each of the teams. Jason's in the middle of all that. He's in Orlando, Florida, so he's away tonight. But we got plenty of college hoops to talk about. It's been a wild day. Number one, Auburn has won, winning at Ole Miss. Kansas has melted down and lost to Baylor. Duke kicked the crap out of North Carolina tonight. John Calipari in Arkansas beating his old team, Kentucky, in Rupp Arena in the second half of the game when Kentucky had everything to play for. Arkansas has been awful, and Arkansas is putting it on them so far. There's still about 12 minutes to go in that game as we do this live. Obviously, if you're hearing us on podcast, you know how the game came out. So let's see what happens there. UConn's gotten a huge win at Marquette tonight, so we're ready to talk about all of this. In just a second, Adam Zagoria, our insider from the Zags Blog and NJ.com, covers the Northeast, the Big East, and much more. He'll be with us in a moment. Later in the hour, Matt Zemek is here with me over the course of this live Nightcap show. Matt is based out west, writes for the USA Today Trojans Wire website for USC. Big win for Southern Cal over Michigan State. We've got a ton to go over, including we'll hear from the co-founder and CEO of one of our sponsors, GoSleeves.com. Darren Lancaster will be here. He's a huge college basketball fan. I'm going to play a conversation with him, talking college hoops and about their product in a few moments. Again, thank you for finding us. And without further delay, let's get to our insider, Adam Zagoria, who's been witnessing everything that's been going on today. Mayhem all over the place. Good to be with you, my friend, from the Zags Blog, NJ.com. Happy Saturday night. Let's begin with Connecticut. We have just witnessed, right before this live show has begun, Connecticut put the finishing touches on a win at Marquette. As impressive as anything maybe we've seen from them in weeks. Is that fair to say? What a road win for them. Welcome, Adam.
Yeah, hey, TJ, good to be here. Yeah, that's a big-time win for Dan Hurley and the Huskies. I mean, the news came out before the game that Liam McNeely was not going to play. He hasn't played since December 1st with the high ankle sprain. Danny said yesterday he was going to be a game-time decision. So for them to come out and win at Marquette in a very hostile environment without Liam is impressive. Solo ball, 7 of 9 from deep, 25 points, 10 rebounds. I think Alex Caravan had about 15 points. Big-time win, and the byproduct of that is that St. John's is now in sole possession of first place in the Big East, TJ, after their win earlier today, and Marquette is now a game back.
Yeah, we'll talk more about St. John's in a couple of moments. I don't know what the effect ended up being, but I know they had at least 23 turnovers. Connecticut had at least 23 turnovers and still won the game against a top 10 team on the road. From your estimation, watching it, was just outstanding shooting. Was it keeping their composure, the rebounding, all the above? How about overcoming that to win the game for Danny Hurley's team?
Yeah, it was one of these weird games where they had more than 20 turns, but I think they shot like 63% from deep. And as we said, solo ball, 7 of 9 from deep. So, it could have been, I know Gus Johnson said on the broadcast, it could have been 15, 20-point kind of blowout if they didn't turn it over so much. But they were able to shoot it well enough to win the game. And, it's going to be very interesting, big picture in the last few weeks in the Big East, because now you've got St. John's in first, Marquette and Creighton both a game back, and UConn just a couple games back. So, all 4 of those teams are playing really well.
That's the voice of Adam Zagoria. Again, if you're on podcast after the fact here, we're on the live show on Saturday night. Adam, again, is a great insider coverage in the New York, New Jersey area, has been doing it for the better part of about 25 plus years in that area nationally, along with me and other outlets. Love his insight, hanging with me on college basketball coast to coast on all the platforms. Hey, just one more about this. I'm not saying they're going to be a Final Four team, but you've seen this many times in your career where you can point to a game and say that's where they kicked it into gear. I don't know what's going to happen with UConn, but could we look back on February 1st in Milwaukee and say that's where they began to put it together, kicked it into gear, they got McNeely healthy? Do you envision it could be something like that coming up?
I mean, it was their second straight, I think, top 10 road win, and they haven't had that in like 15 years. But I think the bigger picture is going to be getting Liam McNeely back, healthy, TJ, integrating him into the offense. You know, this kid was averaging close to 14 points a game before he went down. And, you know, he just makes them better offensively, gives them a better another wing player when he's healthy. So I think if they can get him fully back by, you know, the Big East tournament and you know, late in another month, then we'll really see UConn in full bloom.
All right, let's back up to earlier in the evening and Duke and what they did to North Carolina, destroying them really from about the 2 or 3 minute mark of the game in that heated rivalry. You have written extensively about Cooper Flagg, who obviously looks like the freshman of the year, if not the national player of the year. What was give me your insight. What was the reason why they just demolished North Carolina tonight?
Yeah, I mean, they just came out of the gates, you know, super fired up. I mean, the game was over in the first, you know, 5 or 8 minutes, it seemed like, right? They got a big lead there. Cooper ends up with 21, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Con Knipple, 22, 5, and 5. So the two freshmen combined for 43 points. I think Cooper, if I'm correct, scored or assisted on the first 15, Duke's first 15 points of the game. And then he hit that, you know, turnaround jumper at the halftime to put him up 47-25, I think. So I just wrote about tonight, you know, Jay Billis had some good comments kind of comparing him to Duke legends of the past, Grant Hill and Christian Laettner. This was yesterday. He made these comments on PTI, basically saying that Christian Laettner is probably the most competitive Duke player ever, and that Cooper Flagg is, you know, equaling him in terms of fiery competitiveness, and that Grant Hill was probably the most talented Duke player ever, and that Cooper has exceeded him as a freshman. Now, obviously, Grant and Christian Laettner stayed at Duke for several years. Cooper Flagg's going to be gone after this year. But it's just, you know, he's elevated his game. I talked to an NBA scout in October, and he was like, you know, that was when Cooper had a couple turns at the end of the Kentucky game, and he was getting kind of killed for it. And this scout was like, you know, Cooper Flagg's going to be killing people by December, January. And that's what he's doing right now.
Well put. 87-70 doesn't tell the whole story. I mean, this was a 25-point game from about the 10-minute mark of the first half all the way to the final 5 minutes. It was shifted to North Carolina for just a second. Are they in real jeopardy now of being a bubble team, if not an NIT team? You look at the losses piling up. This had to be demoralizing. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think they came in 1-9 in quad one games, if I'm not mistaken. You know, they're a bubble team according to all the bracketologists. You know, they just have a lot of guys who are the same kind of size. You know, a lot of 6 foot to 6'5" guards and wings. R.J. Davis, Elliot Cadeau, you know, Ian Jackson. They're missing really a big guy in the middle that they had in Armando Bacot for all those years. And they just, you know, they didn't have anybody who can defend Cooper Flagg. I mean, not many teams do. And I think, you know, the fan base, I have some friends in Chapel Hill, and they're not happy with Hubert and the team there. I mean, I think everybody respects Hubert Davis. You know, he's a good man, a good person. But, this is just not one of their better teams.
They have lost 4 of their last 5. They will next play Pitt in an immediate rematch at home, who they lost to last week on the road. Then they've got to go to Clemson, to Syracuse, still have a road game at Florida State later in the year for whatever that's worth, still have the Duke game at the end of the year. Not a lot of quad 1 opportunities really for them. And you said 1-9 in quad 1 right now. That one is what? UCLA on the neutral floor in New York earlier in the pre-conference season. Back to North Carolina. They look like a number 1 seed. They look like a Final Four team. They have more than just Cooper Flagg. Can you say a little more about that? And he distributes the ball some. You mentioned Kneppel, the other freshman. They've got Proctor, the veteran guard. What else on the other interchangeable parts to help Duke go deep into March?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, TJ, to point out is that they're undefeated in the ACC. They're 11-0, and there's a chance they could go. They could make a run at going undefeated. Now, I believe they have to play I think they play at Syracuse next, if I'm not mistaken. Then they play at Clemson, which is 10-1, right behind them in the league. So, look, I think we all know the ACC is not the SEC, but anytime you make a run at going undefeated in your league, that's pretty impressive. And they're going to be a number 1 seed. They're probably going to be here in Newark, actually, and the East Regionals in Newark. So that, they'd probably get 2 games in Raleigh. And then if they win those, they'd be up here in New Jersey where people could see Cooper Flagg. But yeah, to your point, I was talking to somebody, I think Seth Greenberg, the other day on the phone, and he made the point that, credit goes to John Shire for not recruiting a ball dominant point guard, because he knew that Cooper was going to be handling the basketball a lot as the season progressed. And Cooper Flagg's really become like a point forward for them. And he's looking to get his teammates involved. He's looking to feed, Con Kneppel and the other guys to get them going. And then kind of like LeBron, when he needs to take over, he'll do that by scoring. But, Con Kneppel is going to be a lottery pick. The big kid, Kaman Malawak, 7'2" kid, is going to be a lottery pick. And then to John Shire and his staff's credit, they got some veteran transfers, Sion James, some other older guys they brought back on their roster, and Tyrese Proctor's been playing well. So as opposed to Rutgers up here in New Jersey, which has 2 lottery picks and is probably not going to make the tournament, Steve Pikiell unfortunately did not balance his roster out with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey with enough older veteran guys, where John Shire looks like he's struck a perfect balance.
Love this man's insight. He'll be with me for a couple more minutes. Adam Zagoria with us. Read him at nj.com. Also on the Zags Blog. Zags Blog, Z-A-G-S. Zags Blog, great high school recruiting info there. This man is on it with everything in the Northeast. Recruiting. Covers all of college basketball, but we love his insight on the Big East. He's been in on Cooper Flagg since his high school days, etc. So we gave you a lot on that. Back to St. John's. You're in the greater New York, New Jersey area. They were up big in this game earlier in the day, and then suddenly, found themselves in a real struggle at the end of things. Did they have it on cruise control earlier this afternoon? I mean, it almost seems like, I know it began the day today, but it almost seems like it was yesterday. We're talking about St. John's earlier in the day. But what about this, where they led by 19, the Johnnies with Providence, only to have Providence roar back in the final 7 minutes and tie them, and then eventually Kadari Richmond won it. What did you the collapse, but then it's ultimately a victory? What's your take?
That's so funny, TJ. It does seem like that game was yesterday or 2 days ago. Look, I think it's hard to, you're blowing a team out. It's probably hard to keep that momentum going. Even Duke had a little bit of a let up here in this Carolina game. And Coach Pitino after the game was not happy with the defense at the end of the game. He's always going to be about defense and rebounding, so he wasn't happy. They did, let up a huge lead and almost lost the game. And then Kadari Richmond, the Seton Hall transfer, who had a near triple-double, comes up big with the, kind of dances around with the basketball on the perimeter, dribbles, penetrates, hits a pull-up at the at the free throw line, and they win 68-66. He hit it with 3 seconds left. He finished with 24, 8, and 8. He did have a triple-double actually last year, TJ, playing for Seton Hall against Creighton. So he was close to the triple-double today. St. John's got guard Davon Smith back from a shoulder. They're still integrating him in, but this was really a big game for Kadari, and then RJ Lewis played well for them. St. John's has gotten to this point without really shooting the basketball that well. They do not shoot the three well, but they rebound, they defend. He likes the fact that they're afraid to lose. They don't want to lose, but they also believe they can beat anyone, which is a terrific combination to have. And, they have a huge, exciting week here in New York ahead. TJ, they're going to host Marquette Tuesday at the Garden, and Marquette's going to come in pissed off because they just lost to Connecticut. And then St. John's is going to go to UConn. I'll be up there at Gamble Pavilion on campus on Friday. And that's going to be a big-time game because Danny and Rick, obviously, are rivals.
No doubt. Adam's even getting notifications while we're doing the live show. That's the dings that you're hearing. The man never sleeps. He never turns any of the notifications off, never anything. One more on that. Again, huge week for them upcoming. A couple more. Where they may be looking ahead a little bit. Like you said, they relax, they're up, but they find a way to win. Maybe a little look ahead. Is that fair for St. John's as they got the big lead?
You're saying were they looking ahead?
Maybe once they got up with the big lead in the second half this afternoon at the Garden? No? Don't think so?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's hard to, constantly keep your foot on the pedal when you're blowing somebody out. Another point is they had just shy of a sellout there at the Garden. They had more than 19,000 people for a college basketball game for St. John's. This is Rick Pitino's second year. He came here from Iona with the goal of turning St. John's around, making them relevant. And here we are in year 2. He's got them ranked 15th in the country. There's 19,000 people at the games. There's another sellout crowd there tonight for Knicks Lakers. And it's good. I think I've said this before. It's good for college basketball and the Big East and just college basketball in general when St. John's is good, when Georgetown is good, when those teams in the Big East are relevant.
And you wrote, and I'm plugging you wrote about this big booster, this benefactor they have, and how much it helped their NIL for St. John's and how critical it was. Elaborate on who that is for the national audience here on College Basketball Coast to Coast and why it's part of the story with the Johnny's resurgence. It's the best season they've had really this century, right, to this point in the year.
Yeah, this is the best start they've had since like the 84-85 team, which had couple guys you might have heard of named Chris Mullen, Mark Jackson, and Walter Berry, Willie Glass. But Mike Rapoli, who is the vitamin water guy, basically, and made $10 billion selling his company, and now is a horse owner in Florida, is more than 50% responsible for St. John's NIL. So it's basically the combination of this monster NIL guy, Mike Rapoli, with, maybe the greatest college basketball coach ever, or one of them, in Rick Pitino. So, it's a dangerous combination because St. John's has a lot of money to get players like Kadari Richmond, who they pretty much recruited off the Seton Hall roster. And, I did an interview with Mike that I posted this week on NJ.com, and he was basically saying, you have to evolve or die in the NIL age. And, that's easy to say when you've got $10 billion and he's fired up. He's supporting his alma mater. He loves St. John's. Not every school has a guy like that. Seton Hall doesn't have a guy like that. So it's, on the one hand, he's right that you have to evolve. And he's saying athletic departments have to hire people with, business experience and people who are familiar with the NIL world, and not just somebody who's going to go out and glad hand at the softball game or whatever. So
they've already demonstrated that whatever he's doing has initially helped them and has initially worked. And let's see if it continues for St. John's as they lead the Big East right now, as Adam is alluding to. It's only going to get crazier with the games with Marquette and UConn. That's in the future. All right, so let's plug one more time the Zags blog for everything that you don't have. NJ.com for everything going on in New York, New Jersey with the college hoops. The Zags blog especially has recruiting. What else do we want to plug and promote? Then go read that article about the St. John's NIL benefactor, Mike Rapoli. If I got the name right, I got the name right. Correct? It's late. Yes. I'm trying to make sure. I don't know that I get my own name right tonight, Adam, on half this stuff. Then go read all of that. What else? What else can we plug and promote, my friend?
No, that's it. I mean, we just want to see the end of this Arkansas-Kentucky game here. It looks like
30-second take. Arkansas has been fantastic this entire game. It's easy to say now, I did not see this coming. They have been bad a lot of the year in the SEC. Did you partially or wholly see this coming, that they were going to play well in this game with Kentucky?
No, I mean, they only came in with one win, right, in the SEC. They're 1-6. It's obviously the story tonight is John Calipari and his return. It seemed to me like he was getting a bunch of boos there when he walked out.
Big time.
Yeah. And it also seems like the former Kentucky guys and the guys who committed and then decommitted are playing well here, right? Like,
yep.
DJ Wagner's playing well. Nelly Davis obviously didn't go to Kentucky, but he's a transfer. He's playing well. Zvonimir Ivicic, the big guy. So, it'll be. I'm sure Cal will feel some redemption and feel good if he gets this win after getting booed there.
There is no doubt. At last check, they're up 81-70 in the final 5 minutes of the game, and they have controlled the entire second half of this game. What a story if they come in there and win the game with all that has been building this entire season for this game, for Arkansas to come in. I'll say the way they've looked pitiful at times in the SEC. They've looked great tonight for what it's worth.
They lost Boogie Flan, their freshman point guard. He's from here in White Plains, New York, Archbishop Stepanak. He was playing great, like a first-round pick. He got hurt with his thumb, and he's out. But we also should give some flowers to Mark Pope. I mean, this is a guy who had six top 15 wins.
Correct.
At Kentucky this year. He's the guy Rick Pitino endorsed to come succeed John Calipari at Kentucky. All the Kentucky fans, they were listing, hey, we're going to get Billy Donovan or Jay Wright or Dan Hurley. And that turned out to be kind of a pipe dream. And I don't think they could have expected that Mark Pope, even if he loses this game, he's still going to be 15-6.
Right.
They're a top 15 team. He's got 6 top 15 wins. So, just a tremendous job by Mark Pope. And his offensive coaching style is fun to watch. They spread the court. They move the ball. I know there was an article this last week by Jeff Goodman saying Cal's offense is archaic and he's lost touch. So this win by Cal will sort of neutralize that. But I think everybody sees that Mark Pope is an excellent coach.
No doubt. There's no doubt they've won the games with Duke, with Gonzaga. They won a huge game at Tennessee earlier this week, as you were mentioning. The SEC is knockdown, drag out. And again, Arkansas still leads that game late. We'll keep an eye on it. Great work. Thank you for hanging with me to lead off college basketball coast to coast Saturday night nightcap live show here that we have on all the platforms. I look forward to talking with you as the days and weeks roll on. March will be here before we know it, my friend.
We'll be poolside in no time, buddy.
Yes, poolside in San Antonio, maybe in the Riverwalk.
Yep.
Adam, thank you. Have a good night. I appreciate it as always.
You too, buddy. Take care. Thanks.
There is Adam Zagoria hanging with me. Follow him on social media at Adam Zagoria, Zagoria. Find him at NJ.com for NewJersey.com for all of his writings, and also the Zags blog. Zags, Zags blog, especially with the high school recruiting and the New York, New Jersey basketball scene. He gave you a ton, again, of relevance, games that are still going on in the top 25. Arkansas has the 10-point lead late at Kentucky. Again, the UConn final is a 77-69 win over Marquette tonight. UConn was a 7-point underdog in this game. I know that. They came into the game only 5-3 in the Big East with a couple of narrow recent wins. And Marquette beaten at home tonight by Connecticut. That means St. John's outright alone in first place in the Big East at 9-1 in the conference after their win over Providence earlier in the day. The Duke final was 87-70 over North Carolina, and it wasn't that close. It was a 27-point game with 5 minutes left. North Carolina kind of dressed it up in the final 5 minutes. We mentioned Auburn, the number one team in the country. They won 92-82 over Ole Miss earlier this afternoon. Auburn rolls on to 8-0 in the SEC. Their only loss is to Duke. Earlier in the year, they have rocked on since the calendar has flipped. Shocker in the Big 12. Couple of big shockers in the Big 12. Kansas State wiping out Iowa State. Didn't just win, blew them out. 80-61. 80-61. It's the largest margin of victory for a Kansas State team against a top 10 team since when? Since 1951. Iowa State lost in Arizona earlier in the week. The Caleb Love half-court shot put the game into overtime, and Arizona won the game. Now they come back home, and Kansas State whacked them. Welcome to the Big 12. We mentioned Kansas. The 21-point collapse by Kansas is the worst ever in the Bill Self era. It may be the worst ever in Kansas history. Baylor came back from 21 down to beat them by 11, 81-71. Michigan State's 12-game win streak is over in the Big Ten, and otherwise they had been 8-0 in the Big Ten. They went all the way out. They had been 9-0 in the Big Ten, actually. Went all the way out to Los Angeles. USC beat them this evening 70-64 by 6, 70-64. So Eric Musselman's unranked USC team gets a huge win over top 10 Michigan State. And you know what? That's a perfect segue to bring our next guest on, another one of my wingmen. I don't have Jason Powers with me tonight. Another one of my wingmen is Matt Zemek of the Trojans Wire website from USA Today. He has been writing, and his colleagues have been writing about that win by USC over Michigan State. My friend, good to have you. Thank you for hanging on college basketball coast to coast and the live Nightcap show. Let's begin right there while we have a moment. How did USC do this with Michigan State this afternoon in Los Angeles?
TJ, great to be back here on college basketball coast to coast. And I think the thing that will impress a lot of people about what USC did is that did it with defense. USC was tough enough against, a really good Tom Izzo team. And, Michigan State the past few years has been like in the 7 to 10 seed range. This is like a number 3 seed caliber Tom Izzo team, kind of a vintage team, a team that, that we've come to expect from Tom Izzo. And Izzo had lost his fastball a little bit the past few years, but he got back on the beam this season. So this has been one of Tom Izzo's better teams in recent memory. And yet USC holds Michigan State to 64. USC has a lot of interchangeable parts. It has some length, at the 3 and 4 spots. And Tom Izzo said after the game, the matchups against that length were difficult. I mean, now USC doesn't have an elite center, but there's length at the 2, 3, and 4 spots, and Michigan State had a problem with that. And, USC, for people who haven't followed this program closely over the course of the season, USC in late November was a total mess, got absolutely thrashed by St. Mary's and New Mexico in a Thanksgiving 2-day event. And USC was just a long way away from being a serious competitive basketball team. But the Eric Musselman MO is that, the second half of the season, his teams get better, his teams find a rhythm, and this team entirely comprised of transfers. The Muss Bus had to go into the portal, just throw this team together like just a weird patchwork quilt. And if he's getting this team, this assortment of cast-offs to beat Michigan State, he just recruited Gilbert Arenas' son, Elijah, a 5-star prospect. And there's a lot of other elite 5-star level players in Los Angeles and the Southern California region. Once the Muss Bus recruits elite LA-based talent, just this program really will have some upside. So, USC is now in the NCAA tournament mix, not in good position, but in the conversation. Like this win over Michigan State keeps USC in the conversation, but the Trojans need like a 5-1 in their next 6 games to think that they're in good position. Just 1 or 2 wins isn't going to get it done. USC needs to stack some wins. But really the big benefit, the big news of this game, if you're a USC basketball observer, once Musselman recruits LA and recruits nationally and he gets elite players in, there's so much upside for this program.
All right, and Michigan State, again, in the East, comes all the way out west to play USC and loses. Now they'll play UCLA in the next game, and we've been making a big deal about the California teams or the Northwest teams having to come east. Here's Michigan State getting a taste of it the other way. Let's see how they do now with UCLA, who's very improved. They bopped Oregon the other night. They won against USC back on, Monday night. They previously beat Washington. They previously beat Wisconsin. It seems like UCLA has figured some things out. I want to move along with you on several subjects. Again, we've got an eye on the Kentucky game with Arkansas. It looks like Arkansas is going to get the win of their season tonight with the way that they have played. Welcome to a crazy Saturday. And I want to add so much more in here to our discussion, Matt Zemek. Let's talk Duke. I just talked with Adam Zagoria about it. Why did they wipe out North Carolina in your estimation? What happened tonight in Durham at Cameron, as it was one-sided almost from the starting lineups being introduced?
They won because they have some dudes, and North Carolina is not an NCAA tournament quality team. Like this is not brain surgery. We do not need to go deep into the weeds on that.
I'll clean it up. We try not to swear on college basketball coast to coast, so I'll clean it up. He often says, this crap ain't complicated. It's a Southern phrase. Same thing you're saying. This crap ain't complicated here. They're just better, and they were that much better tonight. Elaborate more.
Well, we've seen plenty of Carolina Duke games in which one team is favored by a lot. Like you go back to 2022, right? Coach K's final regular season home game. That was supposed to be Duke all the way, but North Carolina, sprang the huge upset, and that team under Hubert Davis, was an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament, but went all the way to the national title game. There were pieces there. Like it was a team that needed a long time to come together. It didn't really mesh until February, but once everything clicked, that 2022 Carolina team was able to play sustained quality ball for 6-7 straight weeks. With this team, there's no, you don't have the Brady Manick. You don't have Armando Bacot. You don't have the elite low post presences, the length, that can combine with the guards. They're too much of the responsibility for North Carolina's team and for its offense goes through the guards, and they don't have the helpmates inside to make it all come together. So, it's notable when a Carolina Duke game falls flat, because we've seen underdogs pull shockers, because the underdogs might not be having a great season, but we know that there's talent there. We know there's potential there to do something on the given night. This North Carolina team is not that. Like we would have seen something by now, and we're just not seeing it. Lucky to beat Boston College at home a week ago, lose to Pittsburgh in what was a hugely important game. Like there's no switch to flip if you're just not that good. We talk about flipping the switch. That's if you have elite talent to call forth. That's if you have something stashed away that you can summon forth in the big moments. This North Carolina team just doesn't have that. And so Hubert Davis needs to really get it right with his roster construction, because this roster just ain't it.
All right, and again, can you say enough? We've already said some things. Cooper Flagg is amazing. We don't want to make it out that he's the greatest college basketball player of all time when he's basically been playing for 2.5 months. Certainly, he is skilled, athletic, beyond just barely being 18 years old. And in the biggest games here, he's coming up large. They have more than him, but say some more about Flagg and how far he may be able to carry this team.
Well, what Adam Zagoria said in the segment before this, I think was really on point, that there's the excellence, but there's also the competitiveness. And I think Cooper Flagg is that marriage of the skill and the will. That's a Doris Burke reference right there.
Mm-hmm.
Skill and will. That he's bringing he has these elite physical talents, but he has the mental game, the attitude, the approach. We could say that he has a professional approach to the college game, and I think that mindset, the way he attacks the game, the way he goes about his business, to me, that's one of the big positive attributes of Cooper Flagg, because we see the physical attributes. But the way he carries himself, just the way he approaches games, the way he responds to situations, that's really what sets him apart as a freshman. As a freshman, we think of, well, he's going to make some mistakes. It's going to be too big for him. No, it's not too big for Cooper Flagg.
21 points tonight, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and they destroyed North Carolina. So if he is one and done, when they ask years from now, hey, how did you do in your first game against North Carolina? It doesn't have to be a fishtail. He doesn't have to exaggerate about how big the fish is that he caught, because he had a huge game in that one tonight. Matt Zemek is hanging with me. It's college basketball coast to coast here on this Saturday Nightcap show on social media, YouTube, Facebook, on Twitter X, on the social media handles. Again, if you're hearing us after the fact in podcast form on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, thank you for finding us. But it's a live show on Saturday night here on all the platforms of college basketball coast to coast. We're going through some of the huge action again. At last check, I'm looking again, Arkansas still leads Kentucky 87-75 here late in the game at Rupp Arena with about a minute left. I see you shaking your head. I'm going to go ahead and put it up there. I don't think it's going to jinx it. John Calipari has gotten a last laugh of last laughs here to come in with them booing him with all the buildup, and his team. This looks like a different team, even without Boogie Flant. He got his team ready to go. They've made shots. They've been tougher. That's me saying that. Say more about this performance. It's not everything, but this is, they're going to talk about this in Fayetteville, Arkansas for a long time, that he went into Rupp in his first game, and it appears they're going to finish off Kentucky and put the finishing touches on a signature win for their season, Matt.
Well, Kentucky does the why, that it's a big deal. Who does the why in the during games at Rupp Arena?
When
so
they
Tubby
spell it
Smith
out
was the why.
Right. Tubby
right.
was the why down on the floor tonight. That was a bit of a surprise. They pulled him out, trying to pull out all the stops.
And maybe a surprise, but not an idle coincidence, right? It's as though, well, here's the former coach we love, John Calipari, So, and Cal walked into the cauldron, and, even though Arkansas is still outside on the outside looking in terms of the NCAA tournament, obviously this brings them back, into the conversation to a certain degree. But really, the big national story here, beyond Calipari's revenge, is Kentucky's defense, right? We've been saying this a few consecutive Saturdays here at College Basketball Coast to Coast. Mark Pope needs to solve the defensive end of the floor. It's all well and good if you can score 90, but if you're giving up 95, if you're giving up 100, and Kentucky did win at Tennessee earlier this week, but that was a weird aberrational game. Tennessee had 22 more field goal attempts, dominated Kentucky in terms of rebounds and other hustle plays, the other hustle categories basically. But Tennessee just couldn't hit the side of a barn, and Tennessee hoisted 45 three-pointers. And Tennessee was hitting about 50% of its twos, but Tennessee shot itself out of that game by going 11 of 45 on threes. So Kentucky won at Tennessee, and it was an impressive result, but it wasn't necessarily an impressive performance, right? So in terms of Kentucky's effort and Kentucky's toughness, Tennessee was tougher, just couldn't hit a thing. And then tonight, Arkansas, as you accurately noted, the tougher team. So Kentucky definitely has a toughness issue. It has a defense problem, and Mark Pope he needs to hammer that home in February so that come March Madness, Kentucky has that blue collar grit to match, its elite shot making skill.
They were tough against Tennessee without Lamont Butler, the leader, the veteran guard, the former San Diego State hero in the Final Four. But tonight, Arkansas made shots. Arkansas got loose balls. They've played with confidence. Great performance for them. It's going to be very intriguing after this game. I'm sure Calipari will be magnanimous after it's over with, but he's got a lot to be sticking his chest out about that. Maybe I'm a little undermanned without Boogie Flan. My team's 1-6 in the SEC. And with all this hype, they are the better team for the 40 minutes of this game tonight. And John L. Davis, the Final Four hero from Florida Atlantic, that's his transfer, may have played his best game tonight, too, for Arkansas when they needed it on the road here at Kentucky. Again, the final seconds are going to tick off in that game. I'm looking for the final Matt Zemek in this one as once again, Arkansas comes into Rupp Arena with all the ballyhooed return here and gets the win over Kentucky. And John Calipari in that red sports coat is going to smile and go over and shake Mark Pope's hand at the end of it, knowing I'm the winner. I get to go have the winner's press conference in an 89-79 victory. Kudos to them. While I have you here for a few more moments, let's go to the number one team in the country. Let's stick with the SEC, Auburn. A lot of people pointed to this game and said maybe it's trouble at Ole Miss, but with Janai Broome, some very athletic players, great three-point shooting, defensively sound. It's me saying that. They beat Ole Miss. Auburn is the number one team in the country. What do we want to say about them on college basketball coast to coast on this Saturday night real quick?
Yeah, so, with Kentucky, let's just start as a comparison with Kentucky. Kentucky's getting everyone's best shot. And there are a lot of really good SEC teams that are getting everyone's best shot every night. Auburn's the team that is not only absorbing that best shot, but it's just like shoving it right back in everyone's face. It's so impressive that Auburn keeps taking everyone's best punch and has an answer for it. Alabama's, on Auburn's tail in the SEC race. Alabama 1 game back. But Auburn's still perfect in what is a cutthroat SEC that's going to get at least probably 12 teams into the NCAA tournament. And you look at the other big stories on this Saturday, TJ. Iowa State getting rocked by Kansas State, as you mentioned. Houston losing at home to Texas Tech, and Marquette losing at home to UConn. 3 top 10 teams losing at home on this day, and yet Auburn's winning on the road at Ole Miss. Chris Beard, that's a good, tough team. It's a team that's going to be solidly in the NCAA tournament. Auburn's just continues to show that it's maybe not way above the field, but it's certainly like half a notch or a notch above the rest of the field. Auburn very clearly in line to be the number one overall seed at the NCAA tournament, and in a situation where, with Iowa State now perhaps falling off the one line, we are looking very much at Auburn and Alabama being number one seeds. Just imagine that 2 teams from the state of Alabama being number one seeds, and it's not football.
Again, I'm just looking here. John Calipari giving the winning interview with Arkansas and this win. That tournament in Nashville, I keep equating it. They're about to do the wrestling. I'm not big into it anymore, but they're about to do the wrestling Royal Rumble for the WWE. It's in Indianapolis this weekend. What they do is they call a different wrestler every 3 minutes down to the ring to do this big battle royal, the Royal Rumble. That's what the SEC tournament's going to be in Nashville between Auburn and Tennessee and Florida and Kentucky and Alabama and Texas A&M and on down the list from Ole Miss to Mississippi State. I'm going to leave somebody out. Pick anybody. Missouri in the mix. Vanderbilt that's pulled some upsets. It's crazy. And even Texas and Oklahoma have shown the ability to get some wins. It's going to be crazy in that tournament. Why don't we do this? I want us to gather ourselves a little bit. I want to go to a conversation with one of our sponsors here, and you and I are going to come back and regroup. We've got more topics to talk about. This includes the Kansas meltdown. What's going on with Bill Self's team? They blow a huge lead and lose to Baylor. I want to talk to you about that. There's a couple of other interesting games out west that we want to talk about as well. But, Matt, why don't we hear from our sponsor, Go Sleeves? One of their co-founders and CEO, Darren Lancaster, is a huge college basketball fan. And full disclosure, I interviewed him a little earlier in the week on the heels of the great win by Arizona on the half-court shot by Caleb Love, and also on Cooper Flagg and North Carolina taking care of NC State. This is earlier in the week before this North Carolina demolition tonight. So, Matt, we'll take a pause here for a second, but we'll talk some hoops and hear more about one of our sponsors. You'll love this stuff from Go Sleeves. We'll go to that right now here on the show. All right, love getting the breakdown from every which direction, including our presenting sponsor on everything we do with college basketball coast to coast. He is the co-founder and the CEO of Go Sleeves, GoSleeves.com. Hello, Darren Lancaster. Happy college basketball. It's not even March yet. It's good to have you. We love the relationship with Go Sleeves. How are things as the craziness of college basketball is now in full swing?
Yeah, it's good, man. What a crazy night last night. We had my buddy at Arizona was going nuts with that shot. I was hoping to see
whatever metaphor we want to use, the power of love. All you need is love. Caleb Love from midcourt to tie the game and put it into overtime. This is why we love college basketball, right, Darren?
It's early. We're early. It's January, right? Is it not? I mean,
yes.
We're not even close to March yet, but the madness begins. Love it. And what does Arizona need? Every little bit of help they can get right now, right?
Yeah. And a big night for Cooper Flagg. I mean, this kid's something else. I don't know how much you've gotten to check out of the 18-year-old phenom, presumptive number one pick in the draft. He took the game over on Monday night with NC State. This is what makes it fun. No matter what region of the country you're in, you got rooting interest, drawing, and then the love-hate thing with Duke. Everybody either loves or hates Duke, Darren. That's another part of it, too. Right?
So I'm not going to lie. I'm in the gym. I'm hitting it, and every time I look up, I'm like, come on, NC State, let's go. And then Cooper put, was it 28 last night? I mean, he was
24 in the second half. He's amazing, but the love-hate thing is big. The love-hate thing is big with him. We love all of this. You know what we love as well is the relationship with Go Sleeves, and we keep saying this to people, the therapeutic value, the recovery value of what you do with the sleeves for the elbows, the knees, the calves. Tell me more about the product and how it's going to help people, especially that are active, athletic, playing basketball, pickleball, biking, jogging, tennis, etc. Tell them more, Darren.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I tell you, if you have had any experience with kinesiology tape or you watch any basketball and you see the tape on all of these athletes on the different body parts, that kinesiology tape is super effective. It's great as rehab. It's great as a Band-Aid, but really we love using it more every day to help the body recover from activity, inflammation, tightness, fatigue. So when we put the body under stress in any sport, the way the body responds to that stress is inflammation, tightness, and fatigue. KT tape's a great solution for that. Just a little hard to put it on correctly and to know what you're doing. So we did a really brilliant thing. Not really. We built the kinesiology tech. So for the folks who are in the video, this is like, Reese's peanut butter, right? We put two great things together. So we built the kinesiology technology into reusable compression sleeves. So I'm showing a knee sleeve right now. And what you'll see in the knee sleeve on the inside is this glistening material, is medical grade silicone. And when you stretch this sleeve on the skin, what the silicone does is grip that skin. So instead of like a normal compression sleeve that's just sliding and gliding across the skin, the kinesiology strips are gripping the skin. That's the magic. So it's opening up the tissues. If you have knee pain, arthritis, tendonitis, golfer's elbow, tennis elbow. It's taking pressure off the pain receptor. So magically, you do feel less pain pretty much immediately. But the real bonus is as it drags the skin and opens up the capillaries and the lymphatic drainage system, just helps the body do what it does normally to recover much faster, much faster.
Love all of this from Darren Lancaster with me for another couple of moments here. Again, GoSleeves.com. Use the promo code TJ for a discount on the product that Darren was showing you, or the line of products that they have. And just follow up again, because my hand is up. I am now at the age where it's the next day, maybe even 2 days later, trying to get through soreness after activity, whether it's weekend basketball, the golf, tennis, pickleball, whatever. The therapeutic value the following day is where you're going to see, or even a couple of days later, where you're going to see benefit with Go Sleeves, right?
Correct. Yeah. We've got roughly maybe a couple hundred NFL guys that are using them, and the default use case is recovery. Even if you don't use them while you're training and playing, if you use them for recovery, the goal is to feel not inflamed and tight and sore, right? I mean, TJ, I don't know. I don't want to do the age thing, but we're old enough that it was like sports for us was, don't talk to me about being sore and tight and injured, go rub dirt on it, or,
That's
where
right.
the bench is. So it's different now. You wake up in the morning and it's not a badge of courage to feel sore. It really is your body saying, you've got much more likelihood to be injured, and you're definitely going to have your performance impacted because you're sore, and soreness is an indication, especially in the lower body, of imbalance. So we want to use everything we can, everything at our fingertips to maximize our recovery, so that we get up the next day, or even we get up later that day for another training session, another game, doing tournaments, whatever it is. You just want to take all of that soreness out of the body as completely as possible. That will maximize performance and minimize your injury risk. And at the end of the day, March Madness isn't really fun if everybody's injured. So it's about being on the court.
And you better be ready in March to play multiple games in the conference tournaments in multiple days. You better be ready weekend after weekend to be ready in back-to-back situations. Recovery time is everything. The therapeutic kinesiology technology with Go Sleeves. We love it. Again, GoSleeves.com to find out more. Use the promo code TJ. Very simple. GoSleeves.com/TJ. Darren Lancaster, it's not even March. We can't wait for everything that's going to go on with the college hoops. I appreciate it here. Good luck, and hopefully they want to go find out more about how to get their hands on some Go Sleeves, right? One more time. Let them do it.
I appreciate you, brother, for sure. GoSleeve.com. Any questions, look us up in social media if you like. Shoot us a DM. We're always here for questions, and tell us what you're struggling with. We got you.
Love it. It's go time with Go Sleeves. Thank you, Darren.
Appreciate you, TJ.
All right, again, great stuff from a sponsor on the program. Matt Zemek, I'm not making you out. You're younger than I am. But the elbow, the tennis elbow, the pickleball elbow, the knees, the calves, Go Sleeves will help them out. And Darren's a humongous college basketball fan. What is the latest? Help me. I know that Nevada and UNLV are playing tonight. Darren is a Nevada Wolfpack guy, and I don't know what the update is and what the score is on that game in the Mountain West. You're the West Coast bureau chief. Have you had an eyeball on that? Nevada's been struggling as of late. Are they going to get right with UNLV late night tonight in the Mountain West? What's going on with that one as we bring you back in, Matt Zemek, on the live show?
Nevada up 37-30 with 18 minutes left. And the essential story here is, remember, UNLV beat Utah State and San Diego State, and the San Diego State win was in Viejas in San Diego. And so you're thinking, oh, maybe the Rebels have finally figured it out. And as soon as they do that, what happens? They lose at home to Wyoming. They
Right.
lose to New Mexico. That's been the story of UNLV basketball the past decade. So right now, on track to lose to Nevada. And Nevada's not going anywhere either. This has been an awful season for Steve Alford. Just no luck at the craps table in the state of Nevada for major men's college basketball this year.
We have fans watching and weighing in. My guy Chris William Wynn is out in Las Vegas, and he weighed in here that this is the Battle of Nevada tonight. We do go coast to coast. I mean, we were talking Duke, Carolina, and that's all the way on this coast, and then we go all the way out to the west to talk UNLV, Nevada, Reno, and everything else in between on college basketball coast to coast. So, like that, good stuff with that. Again, Matt Zemek is here with me. It's the live show. We've got a few minutes left. Again, if you're hearing us in podcast form, make sure that you're with us on Saturday nights when we do this live on the social media platforms. College Basketball Coast to Coast, the YouTube channel. Check that out. Subscribe there. Engage there with the YouTube content. Again, CBB Coast to Coast is the Twitter handle. Facebook as well. Follow Matt at Matt Zemek, Zemek. Follow me at Buck Sideline Guy, my fall winter job of the Buccaneers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, BUC, Buck Sideline Guy. But I love the college hoops. And I need your help, Matt Zemek, right now. Can you please tell me what happened to the Kansas Jayhawks? I know a week ago at this time, they lost the double overtime game with Houston. That can be explained as not putting it away, losing in double overtime. All right. They were shaky in the next game with UCF without DeJuan Harris, the outstanding guard. DeJuan Harris back. They're up big today, and they blow it at Baylor. What's going on? What's the level of concern right now for Kansas?
You know, there's a really interesting discussion surrounding Kansas's veteran core, Harris, also Hunter Dickinson as well. Like, some people are saying, you know, they've been around the college game so long that, you know, they're like, it seems as though like the joy of the journey has been removed from them. Like they're focused on their NIL money, you know, and putting in the work, but like it's just a process. It's a slog. Like there's no spark in the endeavor. And regardless of what you think about that, like there were moments when Baylor made its furious comeback when Hunter Dickinson just didn't make the extra effort to get a loose ball. He wouldn't make like an extra half step to finish a layup or put himself in the best position to dunk the ball against a Baylor defender. Just there's not juice. You don't see that juice from Kansas players. And whether it's mental fatigue, whether it's just being a half a step slow, you know, Robert Wright, the freshman guard for Baylor, he was just getting to the cup with regularity. And just there was no extra effort to stop the ball, to get the ball out of his hands. Kansas looked a step slow, half a step slow, and you know maybe it's just older guys who have a lot of tread on the tires, a lot of accumulated miles. Maybe it's just guys that aren't as invested as they should be. But there's something stale about Kansas, and Bill Self needs to fix that. I think it's less about X's and O's. It's more about being able to create a sense of fun in the journey, because that joy of the journey, relishing pressure, relishing the expectations that come with being a Kansas basketball player, that existed in November. Kansas beat Duke. Kansas once beat North Carolina in the Flagg. There was joy in the journey, but now the juice has been squeezed out of that team. So that's really what I noticed with Kansas.
How about 60 second half points, 60 by Baylor? How about find some defense while we're talking about that? And I'm just looking at the box score. It wasn't like they were all bombing three-pointers. They only made 6 3-pointers for the game, 25 of 28 at the foul line. They out-rebound Kansas 40-27, but they scored 60 points, 60 in the second half after being down 40-21 at halftime. So that was not good. What else in the Big 12? How about Texas Tech tonight? It's been a crazy day and night in the Big 12. Texas Tech loses their star big man, JT Toppin, the younger brother of Obi Toppin, the NBA player. In the first 4 minutes of the game, he gets a flagrant 2 foul that we'll talk about here in just a second, that not only kicks him out of the game, but it kicks Graham McCaslin, the coach, out of the game because he got a double technical. And Texas Tech still won the game, got it into overtime and won the game. What a win for Texas Tech at Houston. So let's talk about the overarching. I mean, the Big 12 storylines are upside down. Iowa State gets wiped out by Kansas State earlier in the day. Houston loses tonight at home after the star player for Texas Tech and the coach got thrown out in the first 4 minutes of the game, Matt.
Yeah, and Texas Tech was leading this game for about 25 to 30 minutes, but then Houston had a 66-60 lead late in regulation. You're thinking done deal. Houston's made the rally. Texas Tech can't score. Like Texas Tech went about 5 minutes, close to 5 minutes without a field goal, went about 10 minutes scoring just 1 or 2 field goals. So Houston up 6. What did we have late in the game? Friends don't let friends miss front ends. That's the free throw awareness month mantra. Free throws continue to be a problem for Houston. Houston should have lost that game to Kansas, and it was because of the free throw line. Free throws once again hurting Houston. Texas Tech tying it at the end of regulation with a 3. So, Houston won a game it shouldn't have won a week ago, and today it lost a game that it should have won. But Texas Tech, amazing fight back. And one of the bigger stories on this Saturday, TJ, just to kind of put all of this in larger perspective, notice how many big wins are being gained by teams that were without key pieces. So Texas Tech without Toppin, that's 1. Connecticut, UConn without Liam McNeely winning at Marquette. Like you're not just seeing road upsets. You're seeing road upsets by teams that were shorthanded. That's how wild a day we had today in college basketball.
And speaking of the free throws, it was 2 winning free throws in the final 10 seconds for Texas Tech. That was the final margin of victory, and they got the one last defensive stop. All right, back to the top and play. Again, if you're on podcast, you can't see Matt and me. I don't have the highlight. Let's suffice it to say this. Toppin was looking to throw a cross-court pass on the offensive end against a double team. And you love me for a lot of reasons. You love me for my humor and my references. He then did kind of a Daniel LaRusso crane kick from the Karate Kid right on the Houston player, right between the legs. I thought that's intentional when I saw it, and I thought flagrant too. Now, on the game broadcast, I know Rich Hollenberg, my colleague here from the Tampa Bay area who does the Big 12 on ESPN, I think it was King McClure was the analyst. They were both questioning, was that enough to kick him out of the game? Again, the coach, Grant McCaslin, also got thrown out of the game when he found out Toppin got thrown out. Do you believe it warranted flagrant 2 and the tossing of the player and the coach eventually from this situation?
In terms of separating intent from action, the physical action of a play, like your body, how your body carries you through a play. I would like to think we could all agree that there was no intent to do something. It's a lot like targeting in football, where you eject a player for something that is clearly malicious and dirty. Right? You are making a dirty play. There is intent. There is will. It is a purposeful act. That's what should eject players. This was not that. And so like that to me is the bottom line. And like I used to ref basketball, and I'm just so dismayed by the lack of common sense in sports officiating, basketball, football, whatever. There should be a basic reason why you do something as significant as ejecting a player. And it should be, you were dirty. That was a cheap shot. You did that knowing full well what you were getting into. This is not that. We should be able to exercise that basic bit of common sense.
For example, a clothesline. For example, a punch. These are the things that flagrant 2 are there for. I will just push back that you see him jump straight up in the air and you clearly see him kick his right leg out while making the pass for no other reason, apparently, other than I believe intent. I believe he's trying to get one on him, and he kicked him right between the legs in doing it. I mean, it's not a normal thing to jump straight up in the air and kick your right leg out at a guy. And that's what they looked at on the replay. And I guess we can go round and round, but what a job by the Red Raiders to come into Houston in the Fertitta Center, one of the toughest places to play in college basketball, and win the game without that star player and that coach. That's the bigger story in the craziness.
And so let's bring this up. Grant McCasland brought aboard Jeff Linder, from who the former head coach at Wyoming, to be his main assistant. So McCasland had an assistant coach with head coaching experience. So this was really a real audition for Jeff Linder, that he might have gotten himself a head coaching job for the coming college basketball coaching carousel cycle in April on the basis of this result. So like that really came in handy, that if you're a head coach, you want a proven lieutenant as your assistant, someone with real coaching chops. That came in handy for Texas Tech today.
And again, Kansas State beats Iowa State at a humiliating loss for them at Hilton Coliseum. What did they had won? What did I see? 23 in a row? 29 in a row. Thank you. That's why I have Matt Zemek here. 29.
And Kansas State had lost 15 in a row on the road. Absolutely extraordinary.
Welcome to college basketball and the craziness. While we're here and in the Big 12, Arizona follows up the win over Iowa State with the Caleb Love half-court shot that we were just talking to Darren Lancaster of Ghost Leaves about. Amazing moment from Monday night, one of the moments of the year to get that game into overtime, and they eventually won it. Iowa State obviously didn't recover, blew a huge lead, and got wiped out by Kansas State today. Arizona, meantime, won early this afternoon against Arizona State in Tempe, and tempers flared late in the game. Arizona State player headbutts Caleb Love and gets a technical foul. Bobby Hurley's so worried that this was his excuse. He's so worried that there's going to be trouble or a fight after the game. He pulls his team off the floor at the end of the game, sends everybody on the reserves to the locker room, and says to his team at the horn, "Come with me. Don't shake their hand. We're leaving." So he's getting criticized a bunch. He couched it as, "I was afraid there was going to be trouble after the game because of all the chirping by Arizona that was allowed to go on." Where do you come down on the mayhem here, and no post-game sportsmanship, no handshake with Tommy Lloyd after a win at Arizona State? Bad look on some fronts for Bobby Hurley. What are your takes, having seen it and now heard my takes?
You know, I've felt this for the past few years. I won't say I felt it for like the past 10 years, but maybe the last 3 or 4. And this also has some relationship to, you know, court storming and the safety of people involved in a court storm when that particular scenario emerges. I don't see a whole lot of value in the handshake line. I think that's performative. I think it's kind of it's for optics. It's for the sake of appearances. I'd rather we don't do that. Like, you don't have that in the NBA. I think that college basketball doesn't have to have a handshake line. Now, does that mean Bobby Hurley handled this the right way? No. I mean, it seemed as though, you know, because the handshake line is part of the accepted post-game procedure, that, you know, if you're not participating in that, it does seem like kind of a grievance that doesn't really have a whole lot of merit to it. It does seem a little bit whiny, especially when you're on the losing side, and especially when the ASU player, you know, was instigating that little episode with Caleb Love. So that's really the thing, that Bobby Hurley felt so hurt by this, but it was his own player who was more in the wrong than any Arizona player was. So really that's where we can find fault with Bobby Hurley. But beyond that, ASU looked like a really good team early in the season, beat Grand Canyon, beat New Mexico. ASU was scoring really well early this season, but the ASU offense, and this has been Bobby Hurley's, the millstone around his neck in Tempe, ASU offenses usually go to die down the stretch, and got some good shots, but that doesn't have the players who right now are finishing nearly enough, and ASU is definitely outside the candy store looking in as far as the NCAA tournament is concerned. And on the other side, Tommy Lloyd, you know, Arizona was a mess in mid-December. Arizona was barely above 500. That did not look like an NCAA tournament team. Tommy Lloyd finding the answers, really impressive what he's done the last month and a half. And with the Houston loss, at the top of the Big 12, you have Houston and Arizona. And it's going to be fascinating to see how that race unfolds over the next few weeks. And, Iowa State's loss, that means the Cyclones have 3 losses. So there is still a gap. Even with Houston losing, there's still a gap. Houston and Arizona, and then Texas Tech 3rd, and then Iowa State 4th. So Houston and Arizona battling for the Big 12. What a series of plot twists in that particular conference.
Love Matt's insight. We'll stay here for a couple more moments. I want to get his thoughts. There's a game in progress right now with Gonzaga and St. Mary's. They're headed to halftime in the West Coast Conference, and there's a bigger thing with Gonzaga that we keep talking about on these shows. By the way, we have fans watching us live. This is a friend of mine and my family that's seeing us on the social media platforms, the O'Neill family, by extension, the Appling family in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Hello, Chattanooga Choo-Choo, watching us on college basketball coast to coast. Matt Zemek, they're seeing us, they're hearing us, whether it's on the platforms live or on the podcast on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. College basketball coast to coast is a podcast. Check us out there as well. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, social media. We're talking college hoops. Good to hear from you, Mark O'Neill, here with that tonight, checking us out. All right, so St. Mary's and Gonzaga. We keep talking as a theme that Gonzaga is just not going to walk over everybody in the West Coast Conference this season or in the tournament. St. Mary's, traditionally good, is beating them right now late in the first half in the first meeting of the year at St. Mary's, 32-24. They've already lost to Santa Clara earlier in the year, Gonzaga. They still have to play San Francisco twice. They have already lost to Oregon State at Oregon State, Gonzaga. They avenged that with a win. Washington State is in this mix too. Washington State and Oregon State, kind of quirky. Only year they're in the WCC before they're going to go back to the Pac-12 and reconstitute the Pac-12. This thing is going to be wide open, I believe, on who can win the tournament in Las Vegas, including what we're seeing tonight. There's a long way to go. Gonzaga could maybe come back in this game, but St. Mary's looks good in the first half. Do they not, Matt?
They do, and St. Mary's hasn't been touched yet in the WCC race, and the St. Mary's the first 6 games St. Mary's was playing the softies, the lower end of the conference, but then a road trip to Washington State. It played at Santa Clara earlier this week. The level of difficulty has certainly increased, and yet St. Mary's has had answers. Also played San Francisco as well. So St. Mary's ran through all 3 of those opponents in the upper half of the conference. So, with St. Mary's having a 2-game lead over Gonzaga in the loss column, if the Gales hold on, and obviously, again, as you said, it's late first half, Gales up by 8. If St. Mary's does hold on, and people will, know the score of this game if they're watching the repeat of this show Sunday morning here on
the podcast audience is going. Right, the podcast audience is going, Why are these idiots talking about Gonzaga losing? What a great comeback in the second half. Matt and I don't know the ultimate outcome. We're good, but we don't know who's won the game yet. Continue.
Yep, that's why we have to couch it as an if. We have to let the game play out. But if you're waking up on Sunday and you're seeing, St. Mary's did hold on. If that scenario does come to pass, St. Mary's is up 3 games on Gonzaga, and there's only Gonzaga just has the return game in Spokane, won't be able to make up the difference most likely, since St. Mary's has already handled a few of the tougher WCC road swings. You mentioned Washington State and San Francisco. San Francisco leads Washington State by 17 midway through the second half. Washington State's gone down. Washington State got swept by Pacific, home and away. So the Cougars have really gone into a tailspin. They're really out of the mix. It's going to be interesting to see, if Gonzaga can fend off Santa Clara and San Francisco for second place, and then but the only path to first place for the Zags, they need a sweep of St. Mary's. So that's what the significance of this St. Mary's Gonzaga game is. St. Mary's wins, Gales are pretty much, locked into the driver's seat for the conference championship. If Gonzaga comes back, and you're seeing this show Sunday morning with Gonzaga having completed a successful rally, then the Zags are just 1 game back, and they get St. Mary's in the kennel in Spokane. So huge swing depending on the outcome of this game.
And the bottom line is, as I have up on the screen for the video audience, they look vulnerable, especially on the defensive end. They've had problems throughout the year in the loss to Kentucky earlier this year. And Santa Clara scored 100 points on them in regulation at Spokane in that game. So we'll see. We'll see if Mark Few, again, the streak is 26 consecutive seasons they've been in the NCAA tournament. I'm not saying they're missing the NCAA tournament. I'm just saying in this conference, it's not a rubber stamp at the moment for Gonzaga. And I think Matt agrees with that. Did we leave anything else out? I'm just looking at the top 25 results. Again, Tennessee, it does seem like it was yesterday, and it's about to be midnight in the East. It will be yesterday. It's about to be Groundhog Day. Matt Zemek coming up in the Eastern time zone. But earlier on Saturday, Alabama won over Georgia. It appears that Mark Sears, everything is hunky-dory again with he and Nate Oates after some problems. They won in the middle of the week at Mississippi State. Not an easy place to win. They clobbered Georgia today. Sears had 17 in that. Alabama, a Final Four team. You and I were around them. They still have a couple of pieces and the coach from the Final Four team in Arizona. You want to say something about Alabama real quick? Quick comment?
Oh, just what I said earlier, that you're looking at Auburn and Alabama both being one seeds, especially with Iowa State falling from the one line, or at least being a less solid number one seed right now. Like the Alabama schools and Duke, those look like the three solid number one seeds. The fourth number one seed is now very much up in the air. In terms of other stories from Saturday that we haven't talked about, we did talk about North Carolina not being an NCAA tournament team, Villanova not an NCAA tournament team, and what a costly and really unlucky late loss. Like Creighton banks in a three from a crazy wild angle late, but Villanova needed that game against Creighton. The Wildcats now 12-10. It's not looking good for Kyle Neptune. So just imagine before the season, imagine someone telling you Villanova and North Carolina will not make the NCAA tournament. You would have gotten very long odds on that one. And another story doesn't have NCAA tournament implications, but Miami winning its first conference game in 23 tries, beating Notre Dame, and Micah Shrewsbury, like that tenure, that coaching situation has not turned out nearly as well as a lot of people thought. Thank goodness for Micah Shrewsbury that Marcus Freeman has an elite football program to kind of take some of the focus off his basketball shop in South Bend. But that was a real shocker. And Notre Dame blew a 17-point lead to a not very good Syracuse team, lost at home to Elon earlier this season. What a disaster. And Notre Dame continues to fail to recover and to restore what Mike Bray had rolling a decade ago when Notre Dame was an Elite Eight team and was one of the better stories in college basketball. It's amazing how Notre Dame's fallen off the mark over the past 10 years.
Hey, real quick too, UConn. I was asking Adam Zagoria about this at the beginning of the show, and for those that may not have seen all of it, they were very impressive tonight, even without Liam McNeely, the star freshman. But I mean, they have pieces still. Caravan from the national title teams, the big guy, he played well. Solomon Ball, who goes by Solo Ball, he almost won this game solo with the three-point shot, made 7 of 9 from three-point range. They were great tonight. I'm not saying it's everything, but is that a galvanizing moment for Danny Hurley's team to go into Milwaukee and win that game with Marquette? What do you say?
Well, Dan Hurley said after this game, Liam McNeely should be ready to play against, guess who? Rick Pitino and St. John's next Friday. And St. John's, with the Marquette loss created by UConn, St. John's is now in sole possession of first place in the Big East. And now the Johnnies play UConn on Friday. What a main event that is going to be. But so if you're UConn, you're saying, hey, we went into Milwaukee, we went into Shaka Smart's crib, and we took down Marquette, and we did it decisively. And now we get our horse, McNeely, back. And now we're going to go. We're coming for you, Pitino. We're coming. So what a main event showdown the Johnnies and UConn is going to be. next week is the Super Bowl, of course. The Chiefs are trying to three-peat. UCLA is the only men's college basketball program to three-peat. So I pretty much thought that UConn's three-peat chances were dead. Might have been just a little premature on that. But it's going to be fascinating to see how UConn against the Johnnies and Patino next Friday. Like, you want to circle that game. You cannot miss that game.
Agreed. And you're not wrong to think that, because UConn was having problems even earlier this week. They were losing to DePaul by double figures at home in the first half and had to roar back to win that game. They did lose to Xavier last Saturday night. They also lost to Creighton at home recently. They lost to Villanova, who you were just lamenting, at Villanova earlier this year. So it's not as if UConn has been bulletproof, even in the Big East schedule as of yet. But man, they may have gotten something together tonight with that. I'm going to say this one more time because we've got audience joining us, and I promise we're getting out of here in a minute. This may be the story of the day all the way at the end of the night. Not just Duke destroying North Carolina, not just Auburn continuing to flex its muscle, not the UConn win tonight at Marquette, but John Calipari comes into Rupp Arena with a say it whatever you want to say it, underachieving, shorthanded. You can just say bad. They've been a bad SEC team at 1-6, and they come in, my father loves to say it, and they clocked them. They clocked Kentucky at Kentucky tonight. One of the stories of the college basketball conference season, fair to say. In the last 4 or 5 weeks, this is one of the stories, if not one of the top couple of stories of the college basketball conference season, is what Kentucky had happen to them tonight, where Calipari came in and got the last laugh big time. Matt, recircle on this one more time.
The magnitude of this game, I mean, obviously it's going to be a moment that John Calipari is going to remember for the rest of his life, no matter what. But now, can Arkansas build off this? Can Arkansas stack several wins? And of course, in the SEC, nearly every game is a quality win opportunity because there's so many NCAA tournament caliber teams. If Arkansas can now stack some wins, then Arkansas will be in position to make the NCAA tournament. And so if this win gets Cal and Arkansas to the NCAA tournament and creates momentum, which creates a springboard effect, and Arkansas becomes really good next season and the year after that, then this game, already significant on a personal level for Calipari, is going to become that much bigger for him in terms of, this is probably his last coaching job. And so if he can hit a home run in Fayetteville, if he leads Arkansas back to the Final Four, what an absolute coup that would be for John Calipari. And so tonight could be remembered as the night which began that. But that reality, that scenario only happens if Arkansas follows through. We talked earlier about UNLV, that whenever UNLV gets going, then the next week plummets. So it's up to Arkansas to avoid plummeting, avoid the dipsy-do, and to maintain a steady upward trajectory from here on out. That will magnify how we think about this night tonight.
Again, for the Arkansas schedule, they'll play at Texas coming up on Wednesday. Then they'll host Alabama. They'll rematch LSU, who beat them in Baton Rouge. I mean, this is an Arkansas team that has been in disarray, that lost 5 games in a row to Tennessee, Ole Miss, Florida, LSU, and Missouri. Now they've regrouped. They've beaten Kentucky, so they got to play at Texas. They play Alabama at home. They play LSU at home. Then they play at A&M. Then they play at Auburn. It's not going to be easy for them to get into the picture on the bubble or into the NCAA tournament, but at least it was a start tonight. And the Arkansas fans are woo pig suing throughout the rest of the weekend, because their guy, their hire, got the last laugh in Rupp Arena in his first trip back in there for all time with a win at Kentucky. And Mark Pope's team has been up and down. They get a huge win, then they don't beat Vanderbilt, then they beat Tennessee earlier in the week, and now they let Arkansas slide in the side door and beat them at Rupp Arena tonight. With that, I think we pretty well covered everything. Matt Zemek, thank you, my friend, for hanging with me and being a wingman as always. I look forward to talking with you more on college basketball coast to coast. Thanks also to Adam Zagoria being with us from the Zags Blog. Read Adam at nj.com and the Zags Blog. Read more from Matt and his crew on the USC win over Michigan State, stopping their 12-game win streak. USC doing that this afternoon in Los Angeles. Read that at the Trojans Wire website, the USA Today USC Trojans website, trojanswire.com. Check that out. My man Jason Powers, again, is officiating the Pro Bowl's flag football game in Orlando. That's why he's not here, Zemek. He's with Peyton Manning and Eli Manning tomorrow. He's getting ready for all of that. He'll be back on the program. But for all of our guests that we always have on, whether it's Tyler Jones or Ari Russell or Deshaun Tate or TC Martin, cast of whomever that we have on this program, we love doing it. Matt, have a great rest of your Saturday night. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. We'll catch up again soon on college basketball coast to coast, my friend. There we go. That'll do it. Whether you're hearing us in podcast form only, come find the video show on social media, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. For all of our guests, I'm merely TJ Rives. We appreciate you being with us on the nation's college basketball show, podcast, and more. It's college basketball coast to coast.